Every runner has a story. What about you? What's your story? Running isn't easy. We've all overcome struggles to get to where we are. Maybe you're struggling now. What is it that stands in your way of reaching your full potential as a runner? And are you willing to do what it takes to get there? If you're not sure, listen to this story about how this runner overcame an obstacle that seemed absolutely impossible. And remember, if they can do it, you can do it too. What are your running goals? Do you need help recovering from a running injury? Do you need help developing a training plan? Maybe you've never ran before and you just want to get started. Let us help you reach that big goal of yours. Here at Body Smart, we help runners maximize their performance and stay on the road. To learn more, ask questions, or to set up your first free appointment, go to bodysmartutah.com or call us at 801-479-4471.
Hello and welcome to the Running Unbroken podcast. I'm Mark, this is Melody, and today we have a special treat. We've got Preston Johnson here. He is the winner of this is a mouthful, of the USATF 50K National Championships held in Long Island, New York. I got it.
Yes. Got it that time.
Yes. in Heckshire Park or something like that.
Yes.
Oh, did I get that
I don't know
right?
how to pronounce it officially, so
Okay.
we'll say that's correct.
We'll say that's correct for now. Anyway, he's the winner. So, just tell us about that whole experience.
Oh man, I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, I could start all the way back in. I first wanted to do this race in 2020.
Yeah.
Obviously, the pandemic had other plans, but it happened this year. So I decided I want to do the race probably back in March of this year. The race is actually normally in March, but they moved it later on to let the vaccine get out and things to become a little bit more normal.
Yeah, and to get some heat and humidity in there too.
Yeah, make it harder because it wasn't
fun.
hard enough already.
Right, yeah.
31 miles isn't that far, and roads aren't hard, and they don't suck to run on sometimes. I mean, I love running. So.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, I know, obviously, the pandemic. I guess before we get into the actual race itself, just tell us what it was like kind of trying to keep training up in the midst of, not necessarily having things to train for, because, there were things that just got dropped, and, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, last year, it's funny, because I got asked this by one of the representatives from USATF that was at the race after, is where'd you come from? We haven't seen you, and we haven't seen your name results. You have all these other big names, that finished behind you, and
You're like, that's right.
And my answer was that I'd honestly felt like last year, I was in shape to start putting out some of these results that I've been putting out this year.
Yeah.
But they were, kind of put on hold because of the pandemic. So for me, obviously it kind of stems more from just the love of running, and so it was easy to be able to be like, okay, there's no races, but I'm still going to go out and run 130 miles every week. It's just a lifestyle and something I love doing.
Yeah.
Well, and also because you told me this once, that you get cranky when you don't run.
I do. Yeah, you can, I didn't run this morning, so you can tell me if I'm in a cranky mood.
I was getting some cranky vibes.
I'm on my break, so I'm a little edgy. No, but yeah, definitely on days I don't run, I'm a different person afterwards.
No.
So, and people around me can tell, they're like, oh, you didn't work out today, did you?
You're like, no, I didn't.
What's giving you that idea?
Well, it really was amazing to watch early on, especially because you had some big goals and you were training so hard for them, and to watch you try to stay peaked for 3 months straight at a high intensity, high level. Mm-hmm. And then things just didn't line up because of the pandemic to have you pursue those goals. And, Solomon did their best and you did your best to try to make it work, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And so gosh, that was tough to see you train so hard and go after it. But I think you learned a lot in that process, if I'm
and there's a lot of growth too. Obviously anytime you put together a long training block like that, you're going to have some benefits just from the physiological side of things. And so that was awesome, as well as, you just get to learn your body a little bit more. And know for your next training block ways you need to tweak things. And, it still ended with, me going out and putting a hard effort out there and being able to do something on my own personally, which I felt like was a good data point along the many data points that you get in your training, to be able to how to taper your training more towards yourself in the future.
Yeah.
Aside from just the fact that, it's running and it's enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, so from the physiology nerds that we are, like from a base building standpoint, like building up that resilience and essentially putting those miles on your body so that becomes your normal. Putting in that many miles, that much time, and that much pace. Because, not only was it a lot of miles, it was a lot of really fast miles too.
Yeah. Yeah, tend to be a little bit on the faster side. That's one of my issues with training that I'm trying to work with now is those easier runs start to get a little bit too fast sometimes.
Yeah. It's a hard adaptation, especially when you have that gear, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then it's like your times on Strava. You're like, I really can run faster than that.
Yeah.
Strava does put kind of a negative perspective on something sometimes. You feel like you kind of have to show off a little bit sometimes with it.
I feel that way with Garmin when I try to do a slow run and it tells me deconditioning or whatever.
Unproductive. I'm like, shut up.
You're
This is
unproductive.
productive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think it takes the full picture into account sometimes, right? Of I'm intentionally going easy miles so that I can run harder on my hard miles, so that there's more in the tank to be able to go hard, right? But anyway, that's funny how some of those tools meant to motivate sometimes.
Yeah, there's always
Make you
negative
feel bad.
everything and stuff like that.
For sure.
This is my question. How do you feel after
Right now?
accomplishing this?
Oh
Or
boy.
tell us how you
Yeah.
felt when you crossed the finish line, and then how do you feel now?
As far as how my body feels, or mentally,
I'm more mentally,
mentally,
emotionally,
okay.
how you felt.
I think the body stuff, you kind of have to hear the story of the race a little bit before we talk about that.
Yes, yeah.
So the mental stuff we can hit now.
Yes.
Definitely, there was kind of the build up to it during the race of just it went from, it was a 10-lap race, 5K each lap. And every lap it was I might be able to do this, to I think I can do this, to I can do this, I better finish this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then when you cross the finish line, it's just kind of the culmination of, not only just all the suffering through that last 2 hours of running, but also the, months and years leading up to it of all the heartache and injuries and things like that. So it's kind of just an overwhelming feeling of just gratitude and just out of your body type sensation of just what just happened, almost you kind of know your life is just changing.
Cool.
And I look back on it now, it's been 4 days. I raced on Sunday. Today's Wednesday.
You're a wiser man now.
And I know it's been so long. I've become so much more mature in the last 4 years. No, but it still just feels like a dream. I go and see the medal that I got for winning, and I see that hanging on my wall, and I'm just that actually did happen. I don't know if it did.
That was the dream, though, right? So, you and I have talked about that several times, where I've been torturing you for something, and you've talked about how one of your big goals is to be able to put yourself in a position to wear a U.S. bib at an event, right? To have the jersey, to have the whole thing going on.
So for winning this race, the winner gets an automatic qualifying spot to be on the World Championships team for the United States.
Which is
That's
so cool.
And the guy that took second, the guy that I beat, took 7th in the world 2 years ago.
Wow.
So that's amazing. Watching that whole process, it's impressive. It's been so fun to see. One of the things that I noticed in your race picture, that there was nobody in the background coming up. So you won pretty well too.
For the most part. At one point, I think I had about a 3-minute lead.
Wow.
And so I guess kind of just going through the process of the race, honestly leading up to the race, and I kind of talked to you about this beforehand too, that I honestly hurt my calf 2 weeks before. About 10, 14 days before. And I was going through my mind, do I even want to go out there? I can still cancel my flights. I can cancel my hotels. I can get all the money back that I put into this.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that towards, a different race that I want to go out and do when I'm healthy. And so leading up to the race is kind of funny, like to try and like reduce the amount of stress on that calf. I was essentially running in high heels. Like I took my running shoes and I put this 10 millimeter stack height heel lift in the back of it, and I was running on an 18 millimeter drop shoe for 2 weeks leading up to the race.
Dang.
It was the only way I could run. And so I took it out for the first time the day before the race.
Just in a warm-up run?
I just did a warm-up run, and I could only run half of that run. So I ran 2.5 of my 5 miles the day before the race.
Oh my
And so there was a lot of doubt in my head going to that point where I was just like, I know my fitness is there. I had done workouts that was indicative of a lot faster finishing times that I even finished that I did run.
Yeah, you've done that on our treadmill here faster than that, right? Like 30-mile run at like average probably 5:30 pace or 5:15 pace.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did a workout, my last big workout, actually the workout the day after I hurt my calf from, I did 14 miles at 5:05 pace here at altitude.
Wow.
And so I was really stoked. And I knew I was in shape to run, around, honestly, dare I say, American record pace. That was kind of my like, if I had the perfect race, I could run around that.
Right.
And then to have the calf thing pop up was like, okay, like I have this doubt there, but I know the fitness is there. As long as the calf can hold up through 31 miles, I think I'll be fine. And so my kind of plan going into the race was, I know there's some really good athletes here. On the starting line, everyone was buzzing about how many just great athletes from different brands were there. And my plan was, I kind of joked like, okay, we're going to talk a big talk on the starting line to trying to get some street cred. And then we're going to go out and try to slow it down as much as we can to try and save your calf.
Right.
Slow it down from the front, get right in front, and then just start cutting the pace back. But it's funny because it ended up going kind of the opposite of that. We went out at probably 5:25, 5:30 pace, so already kind of on the slower end as far as we done. It was a hot day, hot and humid, and I really started to feel really like just antsy, and I wanted to avoid that. I knew I was going to start feeling that way because you always get that way in a race. It's the energy of the people around you and the people cheering. And essentially what happened was about in the middle of lap 2, so about 5-6 miles into the race, I was running with the front group. It was me and another dude, and I started to put like a little bit of a gap on him. Not intentionally, it kind of just naturally started happening, and I wasn't really sure if it was me speeding up or him slowing down, but I already felt like comparative to what my workouts had been, I was already going, slower than I would have liked to have seen the pace go out anyway. So I was like, well, like, there's no reason for me to just continue and make this into a sit and kick race. I might as well just run what's comfortable to me and keep going. And so my pace started dropping down to towards 5:10 pace, 5:05 pace for, about 10 miles after that. And I started to build this huge gap. I remember there's a section of the course where you go out and it's this loop around. It's almost has like a hairpin turn at the end of it almost.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see the people coming up the other way. And so I got a good idea of how far in front I was. And it started to get to the point where I wouldn't even see the people coming up as I did the hairpin turn. And I wouldn't see the athletes. And so, talking to people afterwards, and the pacer, there was a biker in front of me that was kind of like the pace car for the race. And he was like, yeah, you probably had, 3+ minutes on a second place guy. And so I had quite a bit of room, but the issue that I started running in with, and kind of what I alluded to with my body probably not being as good as spirits as my mental state after the race, was I wasn't getting enough electrolyte replacement within the race. So I wasn't, leading up to the race, one thing that I think that we had issues with was I wasn't super familiar with how they were going to have the Elite's bottles out and how we were going to have access to our fluids. So little did I know, we were supposed to have 10 bottles and they were going to be basically on our own separate like Elite tables, so we could easily get to them. and I had 3 bottles.
Oh man.
And so I had 3 bottles, and they had my Gnarly Nutrition's Hydrate in them, and it's worked well for me in training. You know, it's done well in the heat and humid before, so I was pretty confident with it. The problem was needed more.
Yeah, it wasn't enough.
Like,
It wasn't that it wasn't
I
good
essentially
stuff.
just rounded up a bunch of like plastic garbage water bottles and just put a bunch of Gatorade in them. And
shoot.
you know, Gatorade has, you know, the community perception of being this great like fluid replacement, but it just doesn't have enough electrolytes in it to be something you can just hurry and, you know, like take and then take a few swallows of it and then keep running.
Right.
It's just not potent enough.
Right. Well, it's we could have a long conversation.
Yeah.
about why,
Yeah.
why it's not the best. Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of things. It's, you know, sugar, not what you need.
Well, the osmolarity is off so that it actually dehydrates you first before you can absorb it and all kinds of stuff.
So, I mean, that was my mistake. And one of the other issues that I had was the table was in an area where there was just so many spectators. Like, it was 4 or 5 deep in people, and they were just surrounding the table. And so I thankfully had met someone before the race, just some random dude that was there, and he volunteered to be my guy with the water. So every lap he was there, just standing in front of the table, like with my bottle sticking out as far as he could. And I honestly would have had to stop like every single lap to pick up my water, if not, because there was just no way to grab it. I was on the very end of the table, so there was people standing like right in front of it.
Give that guy a medal.
I know, seriously. I gave him a shout out on one of my social posts.
That's awesome.
I was like, that guy, he's the real champ right there.
That's awesome.
So, but essentially the issue I started running into because of, you know, the lack of electrolytes that I was getting in is I started to get severe hyponatremia. And so kind of the symptoms of some of that was like, you start to get like kind of dazed and get lots of tunnel vision. You can actually pass out from it. You start to get like lots of cramping. And so I started to see a lot of those things as I was getting towards, you know, the back half of that race. And so that combined with the calf, honestly, through laps like 5, 6, 7, the whole time I was kind of in my head just like, I hope I collapse. I hope I collapse. I just want to stop. But I don't have an excuse to stop. I'm still in first place. Like, if I just stop and I'm in first place at the national championships, I'd regret that for the rest of my life. And so I kept running hard, but in the back of my mind, I kind of had this thought like, okay, this is miserable. I hope something happens.
Right. If I trip,
it's okay.
like my body's capable. I'm not sure that I want to keep doing this stuff. Yeah.
But it's funny how that mindset changed the closer I got, because it became like to please pass out, to oh my gosh, do not pass out, keep going. You have 2 more laps to go. You have to win this.
Oh man.
But with the hyponatremia and with the calf strain, that last lap was definitely the hardest 3 miles I've ever run in my life. I, to be honest, don't remember a whole lot about it.
You blocked it out.
That's crazy.
Well, at the same time, I word it as like I was trying not to fall asleep. Like there were times when like things would just start to go black.
Get tunnel vision a little bit and stuff.
And I felt like if I like try to turn my head or do like any extra movements, I would like start to like tip over. And so here I am, you know, 3 miles away from winning my first national championship. Flown all the way across the country and had suffered for the last 28 miles. And basically my race was reliant on, can I stay awake? Can I not pass out here?
That's crazy.
So I was just staring at the biker in front of me, and I would yell out to him like, "Is there anyone behind me?" Because I tried to like look over my shoulder, and then I would start to like tip over. And so because my pace, it was suffering pretty bad at that point.
You're dropping time.
So it definitely wasn't moving as fast as I was before, and I know, you know, this guy being one of the top 50K road runners in the world, he's got to be gaining on me. Like he's more experienced with it. I mean, that was my first road 50K I've ever done, so obviously he has a few in his bag. And he was. Obviously that 2-3 minute lead shrunk to about a 40-second gap at winning, which is, you know, quite a bit of progress to make in one lap, but still like winning by 40 seconds. I was obviously very happy with that. If I won by 1 second, I've been happy. But, I was still pretty pleased being that far ahead. But immediately when I finished, I essentially my body knew I was done because I was able to have 1 to 2 seconds of emotion, and then I immediately was just kind of veering off to the side over towards the grass because I knew I was going down. So I collapsed and was immediately unconscious for about 30 seconds. And just woke up with paramedics all around me. And I was just like, what the heck just happened? Just this extreme range of emotions from
crazy.
The elation of winning a national championship to laying on the ground, wondering,
am I going to be okay?
what is going on here?
I'm exhausted just listening to this.
It was
That's amazing.
Yeah.
such a crazy few moments.
Oh, honestly.
And it ended up, they wanted to take me to the hospital, but I was delirious, and so I honestly I couldn't talk very well. And I know they were laughing at me in lots of different ways. So I know I was saying lots of funny stuff. I don't remember what it was.
Anybody film it?
So if anyone filmed it, there's probably some really good bloopers and highlight reel stuff.
Yes,
that we can throw in.
That'd be great. I love it.
But I just remember them saying, we need to go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I need to get my awards.
You're like, I earned
Let's talk
this.
about the important things.
It's like, I ran,
I love it.
I did this. I don't want to leave and miss out on that moment.
Yeah,
Gosh.
for sure.
And so it's like, okay, you have half an hour. If you're not better in half an hour, no matter what you say, we're taking you to the hospital.
Yeah.
So they put me in the back of an ambulance and drove me off site from the finish line. Because at that point there was just
So many people
everywhere. And
Yeah.
everyone was just kind of in this state of shock and caution and not knowing what to think because they just witnessed, the end of this big race, and then they also witnessed the same person that just won that race just
Collapse.
collapse.
And they drive off in
Right.
ambulance.
And then drive off. So they got me away from the people and treated me for about a half hour and
You have to have an IV or anything like that after?
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I would
I-
assume.
They had all kinds of things connected between pulse oxygen meters and blood pressure stuff and oxygen masks and
Well, probably they were telemetry for your heart and stuff like that.
all kinds. I don't even
Yeah.
know what some of them were. They were just sticking patches on me.
Stickers
Yeah,
and
alright,
patches
yeah.
and wires
ice
coming out.
bags and
Yeah, they're probably trying to bring your core temperature down too. Yeah,
yeah. So
that's crazy.
but
Pretty wild.
despite my legs are still very beat up with the all the cramping that came on from that type of natremia, as well as the injury I had pre-race. Walking is not easy.
Yeah.
But thankfully, not for a big race like that, typically take a little bit of time off to kind of recoup. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice. But
Well, and the light speed's waiting for you whenever you want it.
yeah, absolutely. I'll take advantage of that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how's it been now that you've had kind of a couple days to have that all sink in? What's been going through your mind? How's all that been?
Man, the changes that have been happening just for my running career in general has been really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think lots of kids and especially young boys in general have dreams of being professional athletes and things like that. It's kind of the dream, and in a way I feel like I'm kind of fulfilling that a little bit now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've definitely as far as contract stuff, things have started to open up and options to get into big international races and things like that have been there, and it's just this light at the end of the tunnel of for those that don't know my story, just lots of injuries and lots of setbacks through the college career running at Weber State and things like that. And so to strive this stuff open up is this glorious I don't know, fulfillment, I guess. And so the last few days has just been it's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Wave of emotions.
Yeah. So the theme of this podcast has kind of become running unbroken has become the overcoming of the challenges, the excuses that we could make to give up and to stop and to not keep running. But finding a way through and running unbroken, right? You had moments in your running career where you were broken, and yet you pushed through. Tell us a little bit more about some of those. Like I know them, but
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So first I kind of just want to like a theme that I've kind of like brought into my own running career, especially over the last 2 weeks. It's really started to resonate with me a lot. And that's the word of grit. And just having grittiness in your personality and like your training philosophies, because running is hard and there's always going to be things that are going to be in your way, but you've got to be able to adapt. And I think the best runners are the ones that are able to adapt around those things to be able to push through and not just stop and wait for that obstacle to get out of the way for you. And so that's kind of like the philosophy that I feel like needs to be had through different setbacks, and that maybe I may have lost a little bit through my college career through like some of my injuries. Now I trained hard through them, but I don't think I had the gritty nature that I would have wished I would have had to be able to compete with them. Because it's doable if you are cautious and you are smart about the way you do it. So in college, essentially, I'd always been one that put a huge focus on just training hard and being the person that's going to work the hardest in the room. I think that's the only way to become a good athlete, and it's a good mantra across beyond athletics as well in your career. And so that's kind of always been something that I've taken to heart. And so naturally with that, there's a high risk for injury when you're doing a high training load or a very intense training load. And so I suffered from stress fractures, deep posterior calf strains, really bad bouts of plantar fasciitis, a torn hip labrum that ended in hip surgery.
That was in 2018.
And that was in 2018. Yeah, that was like the very end of my college career.
Yeah.
I actually ended up running my last 2 seasons with it torn, just because once it's torn, there's not really a lot more damage that can be done, and I wanted to at least experience, what at that point could have been the end of my running career. With that surgery, I was kind of told, you have a 50-50 chance of ever coming back and competing at a high level again. And so I very well knew that my last race on the track could have been my last competitive race for a long time, if not forever. And that was very humbling to hear that, or I don't know the best word for it, but just changes your perspective. When you realize something like that can be taken away so quickly.
Very sobering.
Sobering is probably a better word for it. Makes you really grateful for the healthy times. But and through all that, I mean, I had high dreams. I came out of high school. I took 7th place at the Indoor National Championships in high school in the 5K. I'd always wanted to be an All-American in college, and even had dreams of winning a national championship. And so I had very high dreams. And so through all those injuries, while I still cross-trained my heart out, I was on the elliptical and swimming and biking for hours every day. I was watching my teammates and other athletes live my dream. And I would say the thing that probably broke me the most was that. I was living with these people and with them 24/7, watching them do things that I had worked my entire life for and that I knew I was capable of, but there was just these setbacks that at that time were not allowing that to be my reality. And so I ended up, having a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and it started to carry over into other areas of my life, and it really became like a dark, 4 or 5 years of my life, and the fact that I was just everywhere I turned going through these different struggles that really made being successful in anything really difficult. I think getting out of college and getting into a new atmosphere and, coming back from hip surgery was kind of the turning of that. I was able to get myself in a new atmosphere where I was, surrounding myself with good people that, wanted to see me succeed and believed in me. And I can't say enough, how much like surrounding yourself with people that are there for you and they're interested and invested in you winning. It was a huge positive for me in overcoming some of the hardships that I went through in college and in my running career. And so as I progressed through that time, I slowly began to see fitness come back and my hip strengthened. There was still like aches and pains after surgery that I was very cautious about. And after those had gone away, I got into my first race and went really well. Ended up getting interest from some different brands as well for some sponsorships, and I really just started to believe in myself again, and the fact that I'm still working really hard. I'm healthy. I was able to kind of put all my injuries in the past and re-strengthen everything and kind of reset and be able to put myself on the right path. And I thought, why not? Why not? Why not? Can I not pick up on some of those dreams that I had when I was in high school, coming off of some amazing races, or that first year of college when I was coming off some amazing races, and restart on that. I'm still young, and running is very unique in the fact that you can go out and you can do it on your own. You don't have to have to an extent, you don't have to have, the coach, the training partners, the team. You can go out very individually at times and be able to do it on your own and be kind of in control of your own destiny. And so that was, a really tough experience coming over some of those hardships. But kind of the process I went through with it.
For sure. Were there moments where you thought, like, I'm done, I'm out?
At times, but it was also at times the only thing I had there for me. And so I think as much as, I wanted to quit sometimes, especially, I started to see setbacks, because there's going to be setbacks along any, path. Even if, the trajectory is up, there's going to be the ups and downs too. Where I wanted to quit, but it also coming over some of, the mental side of some of the negatives I had in college as well was, what kept me afloat there. And so I knew and I saw the benefit of it. And like we kind of talked about earlier, joked about, that I'm a different person when I'm not running. And, running is that outlet for me sometimes. And so, so it is a huge positive for me in that way. And so yes and no. I was very in love with running, and I still am. And so,
but
it's easy to stick with it, I think, with that.
I think success helps, right? So you came, like you said, through kind of a dark time, and then you were able to kind of train on your own, program on your own, rehab, and get going again. And 2019 was kind of your breakout year. It was. I'm still bummed that 2020 went the way it went, because I was excited to see you accomplish some big things. I'm glad that you're hitting 2021, still in stride, but 5 course records, I think, in 2019. I
lost track. There was a lot of them.
But not even a year out of surgery, and you started really not just competing, but doing really, really well. Nice. It was fun to see that, I guess, from my perspective, and seeing kind of you come out of those dark times, and still, I think, battling with some of those things as you were training, right?
Yeah, kind of tooting Cameron's horn a little bit. He honestly was one of those people that kind of picked me up out of my surgery and was like, let's get you healthy. I believe in you. You can do this. And so from a clinical side of things, he definitely got to see, the medical side of, how can we keep him healthy? And so, especially coming off of surgery. And so, like you kind of said, fun. 9 months after surgery, I ran a 1:05 half marathon. Which was way faster than I thought I was going to run that day. I was really stoked about it. But that timeline, I would have never guessed. Going into surgery, I honestly had this 2-year plan of being able to come back into running. And so to do something that I planned 2 years out, 9 months after surgery, was...
Which was honestly probably the 2-year plan was probably wiser.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, you were able to work closely with myself and some other people, and make sure that things were going okay, that you were still staying safe.
Yeah.
Right? There was a lot of reassurance there. I mean, we would talk about it all the time, your training load and where you're at. And I was always trying to pull the reins back a little bit on the speed and whatever. And you ran at really high mileage. But we kind of kept on check with it and saw you regularly enough that we could keep things healthy and moving well. And then you put in, I think that may be, in talking with you, tell me if I'm wrong, one of the biggest changes you made is you made recovery almost as big of an emphasis and effort in your training as was the actual running part of training.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I noticed this huge shift in how much you spent time and effort in recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think part of that has to do with the atmosphere I was around too. I think, especially in the media, recovery is not glamorized at all.
No,
it's all
yeah.
about, you know, seeing the guy waking up at 3 a.m., going for his run, lifting weights, going to work all day, and then coming home and running again, and then waking up at 3 the next day and repeating.
Yeah.
Well, and on a college team, it's probably that same feeling of like everybody's training all the time, even though it may not be every individual's training all the time, but somebody from the team is always training, so you feel like you have to keep up with that.
And that, looking back, you know, hindsight 2020 vision, I would picture that as probably my number one downfall in college was the fact that the social pressures of being around other athletes where I felt like I had to perform day in and day out was just too much for me, especially coming back from an injury. Now, I think if I was healthy for, you know, a good chunk amount of time and I was able to like bulletproof myself a little bit, I may have been able to handle some of the loads I was going through, but I think I was too caught up in the politics of what a runner should be doing to be the absolute best runner in the world.
Yeah.
As opposed to what do I need to be doing right now to recover and become a good athlete, not just tomorrow, but in a year, in 2 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah. Strength training became a huge component of your recovery as well, right? Like bulletproofing yourself, like you said.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that. So we harp on that so much. How strength training is maybe one of the biggest keys. And you started lifting pretty heavy.
Yeah. So honestly, that was like one of the things that I was able to do. So kind of going back to my surgery, I was really anxious to get moving after. I was in the gym 3 days after surgery. I couldn't walk. I was on crutches. I obviously couldn't move my hip. But I was able to like lay on a bench press, and I was able to sit on an arm ergometer, like bike, and be able to do like an arm workout, cardio wise. And I was able to, you know, do some bicep curls or some push presses, things like that. And so it became kind of my focus. And at the time, you know, not knowing if I'd be able to come back for running, almost like my go-to sport, it became, apologize.
No, you're good.
So I really put a big focus into it, and I think, you know, looking back, that probably was, you know, what allowed me to come back so quickly and be able to be strong enough to handle that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I was back on the bike 4 weeks after, I was back in the pool 6 weeks after surgery, I was running 3 months after surgery, and I've seen people go through this similar surgery and have, you know, a lot longer times than that. And so strength training, I think, became a huge thing there, and that passion that I built for strength training through those months just never died. Like, it was just really, and to see the results of it too was really reassuring and reaffirmed that, you know, I'm on the right track. This is something that I need to carry over into my training on a daily basis. And so I didn't really change a whole lot, honestly, coming out of like, you know, lifting being my primary sport at that time to being like, you know, a secondary thing, but still doing that same, you know, lifting routine that I was doing then when it was my primary sport.
Right. Almost daily still.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think that's huge. And he's filmed some of our strength training videos with us. He's been our test subject, and I can verify, I can vouch for him. Like, he's strong, and he has kept up a very like complete program. It's been awesome to watch.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that you gained a passion for weight training. A lot of people that I talk to, they're like, I love running. I love the slow, easy burn versus the like high intensity weightlifting. And I feel like you don't meet very many people who love both of them. Or someone lifts weights and they like the high intensity weightlifting, but they don't like the slow, long runs, you know, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, slow is a relative term when we're talking about Preston. Slow.
Well, I think that was something that I kind of like built up through my cross training in college. I just began to realize that, you know, you got to have goals in other areas of fitness as well. Because there were times, you know, I averaged that I was injured for like 4 of my 5 years cumulatively in college. That in that time, I had to set goals for my ellipticaling, for my biking, for my swimming, or else like it's just monotonous. What's the purpose? And so I carried that same thought process over to lifting in that time as well, as, creating a purpose for your lifting. Not just the purpose of it being like a way for you to train, but like have goals within it as well. So, looking at your squats and being like, you know what, it'd be so cool if I could, squat my body weight or squat X amount of pounds or whatever it is that you think would be attainable for you. And structuring it the same way you structure your running. Everyone, has these goals of, I want to run a marathon, I want to run this certain time, I want to run my first 5K, whatever it is. But when it comes to cross training, people just throw it all out the window. It just becomes, I just have to get this done, check it off my list, so that I can do my primary sport of running. But I think the mindset needs to be shifted to the fact that these things are not enabling us to do that. They are alongside that sport of running and allowing us to be better at it. And they are in its own sport. And those things can have goals that you can be motivated towards as well and be a little bit more well balanced.
I love that mindset. That's super awesome. That's awesome because so many people don't like cross training.
Yeah.
I think you learn to just, set goals in every area and learn to love every area of health and fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't even make them related to running. Like, I wouldn't say lift in with the outcome of hoping it'd be better running, like lift for the purpose of becoming stronger. And I think naturally it'll help your running. But I think it's really good to be able to, be well balanced in that way.
Yeah, I think it kind of makes me think of what me and you were talking about earlier, Mark, with just like, you want to stretch yourself and you want to be in like an uncomfortable place to grow. And I feel like you want to put yourself like in that spot in all areas. And I feel like by branching out and cross training and doing other things, you're stretching yourself and you're putting, because you get really comfortable running. So try something new, try swimming, do the cross training, try weightlifting, do something that your body's not used to, do something uncomfortable so you can grow.
Yeah. Kind of back to our, some of the exercise physiology stuff we talked about, obviously your body doesn't grow unless you're introducing new stimuluses.
Yeah.
So that's very important.
So I just, it's fun to be able to talk about these things and really makes you a great ambassador for the sport, because I think a lot of times people look at elite level athletes like yourself and they want to, I'm going to be like them. And then they get out of balance and multiply, right? They just try to devote it all to running, and I'm going to be all about this, and then they lose balance. I guess, what would you say to kind of those like hopefuls, like people that are trying to get to your place?
Yeah. One, believe in yourself. There's going to be times when no one else does. And if you don't believe in yourself, you won't make it. Even if that's just waking up every morning, looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself that you can.
Do you do that?
I have not. But one of my coaches in college would tell us stories about that he would do that as an athlete.
Yeah.
And so I know it's been used before and it's been successful in
awesome.
Training your subconscious and doing
Yeah.
that. But there's many other examples, ways you can just, build up your belief in yourself. Because like I said, there's going to be ups and downs and you need to be there for yourself. Because there's not always going to be people to rely on. But as far as training goes, be patient. Everyone wants to be good tomorrow. But in reality, every tomorrow is eventually going to lead up to 2 years from now. And so you need to keep in mind that your best self in 2 years from now doesn't always mean your best self tomorrow. And so
Cool.
you can't go and do a hard workout every single tomorrow to get to your best self 2 years from now. You need to have a good balanced training program up to that point, and know that there's going to be times when you're at peak and times when you're at your low, and be okay with that, because you have to know that everyone's going through that, and it's the process everyone's going through, and you can't look up at the person that's 500 feet up the mountain from you and be like, oh, okay, I want to be doing what they're doing, because that's you in a few months from now. That's not you tomorrow. And so taking in steps, gradually building up your training program, and being patient with it. That's the way your body's going to build the adaptations to actually be good. You jumping up to 130-mile weeks of training is going to have zero benefit for you. You're not going to have the cardiovascular structure to be able to handle that. You're not going to have the muscle fiber density. You're not going to have the mitochondria density. You're not going to be able to absorb that training and actually benefit from it. And so realizing that the best training for you is not the best training for somebody else, and vice versa. And so you need to be able to look at that in your own mind and be like, okay, yes, that's where I want to be in 2 years from now. How can I get there from where I'm at now, instead of just emulating what they're doing, and adapting that as you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love that. Well, I mean, it goes back to what you said earlier, like, instead of looking at what the best athletes should be doing, right? Like, what do I need to become my best self? Man, I love that. Like, what was it? How do you say it? So your best self, what was it? Your best self in 2 years, it doesn't mean that you're going to be your best self tomorrow to reach that. I love that.
Yeah.
Should pull that out. That's our nugget of wisdom. No, I mean, among a lot of other great stuff. So I want to go back real quick to, you telling us about the hip labrum injury, right? A 50% chance of, like, maybe you're done, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're done. What does that mean to you now in the context of what you've just accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, my mindset when I was told that was honestly the same mindset I had when I was deciding whether I wanted to go to New York still after straining my calf. It was, well, if I don't do this, I have a 0% chance. If I do this, I at least have a chance. And so I went into the surgery thinking, if I don't do the surgery, I know I'll have this pain for forever long, and I know I won't be able to run at a competitive level. At least if I get this surgery, yes, I only have a 50% chance in the doctor's mind, but that's a higher chance than I have now of 0%.
Yeah.
And so I looked at that as the same way, I looked at the race and the fact that if I don't go to New York, I can guarantee you're not going to win the race. There's no way you'll win if you don't go. Whether your calf hurts or not, you're not going to win the race if you're in Utah and the gun goes off in New York.
Yeah.
And so I guess that was my approach with the surgery as well.
Yeah.
It's just knowing that it's just something you had to do.
Yeah.
I love that. Another question I have is what things would you recommend? For example, would you recommend, like, coaches? Have you had coaches help you through this process? Would you recommend, like just what are your recommendations?
Yeah. Oh, so many recommendations.
Yeah.
Number one, we're still going to come back to the believe in yourself, obviously. If you're looking for a coach, find someone you trust beyond just running. Find someone that you're willing to pour your heart and soul out to. I think it's important for a coach to understand what's going on in your personal life, because those things take a play into, like, what you should be doing for your training. If you're stressed out and you have a lot going on in your life, you should be cutting back a little bit on your training. It's all about how much stress you can put on. You're adding stuff from external sources at that point.
Yeah.
And so if you don't feel comfortable talking to your coach about that kind of stuff, then your coach probably isn't the right one for you. Or you need to change your relationship with your coach. And then 2, being able to look at the training and be able to talk to them fluidly about it, and give your insight as to what it is. If you're getting a cookie cutter training plan that they just hand out to 5 different people, while it may have worked for them one time, so like, oh, this is the answer right here. Let me tell you, you're very different than they are from where you're starting and how your physiology, everything there. And so really just communicating with your coach is going to be, my advice there. And as long as that level of communication is there, I think, there's a lot of good coaches out there that'll be able to help.
Awesome.
I don't know any other specific topics advice wise. Advice is like a really like
Yeah,
free
All the
world.
advice
I
in
do.
the world, yeah.
I did realize that was a very broad question.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think that is a good point you brought up about like being able to connect with someone, and maybe it's not just your coach, right? Maybe it's having you know mentioned having those supportive people in your life that you're able to like have as an outlet for some of the things that you're going through mentally and physically. Because I think that's something that we all too often don't appreciate, right? We just look at the like loads that you're experiencing in training, right? We're not looking at what's your sleep like, what's your nutrition like what are life stressors that may be impacting your body's ability to recover.
Yeah.
And so I think it's super important that you drill those out, because I don't think we pay attention to some of the like non-physical or non-physiological cues as much as we ought to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess what like for someone who feels like they're just like they want to get into running but they're just struggling to like feel like they have a place in that community or like struggling to know what to do to like become a better runner, I guess what specific advice would you give in that case?
One, you're a runner if you go running. So
Thank you. Yes, you heard it here.
Amen.
so there's no payment to be in the running club to be the runner.
Yeah.
You don't have to like check off running a marathon or whatever it is that people may put as the standard. If you put a pair of shoes on or don't put a pair of shoes on and walk out the door and go for a run for the purpose of going running, you're a runner. And
Love it.
and then just being understanding in the fact that it's going to be a process. But I'd encourage you to find someone to go through it with. If it's not a coach, maybe a training partner, or maybe a loved one that you can at least share your story with, and they can have kind of like an outside perspective of what's going on. And because running is emotional, and sometimes having somebody to kind of guide you, even if they aren't the most in tune with the running world, is totally fine. And so just get out there and do it. It's a very simple sport, and I think people overcomplicate it. You can overcomplicate it, but I only think it's necessary if you're looking to gain that extra 1% advantage. I think the 99% comes from you just getting out the door and just putting miles in. And I think that's probably the one advice I'd give is, don't get lost in the, all the crazy stuff. I think that's deterrent for people. It makes the sport really hard to approach when people are talking about, oh, you need to have this stride rate, you need to strike on this certain spot of your foot, you need to wear like a certain style of shoe, you need to worry about your heart rate or your VO2 max or all of these things. Like all those things are great and they can guide you, but they're so unnecessary.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
I feel so inspired.
I know, right?
This is amazing.
Well, so obviously, like, there's a lot to kind of sort through mentally and emotionally, and with some of those opportunities. I guess what's kind of next on the docket for you? What's in Preston's future? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, obviously the World Championships is a huge one up in October, so
that's so exciting.
That's definitely on the calendar. My focus from here till then is going to be back onto the trails in the mountains.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm doing the Pikes Peak Marathon, which is part of the Golden Trail World Series.
Awesome.
And then I'll be doing some of the Golden Trail National Series in Broken Arrow Sky Race, so the 26K. Then looking at a race out in Canada as well. That's part of that series.
Yeah.
To do. And then those are probably the big focus ones. I'll probably do some local races in between, just kind of as like little guides as to how my training's going.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my next focus there.
Awesome.
And then just really open for a big one in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that? Or I know it's like pretty fresh still.
No, I've been thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
And sky's the limit. That's what I think. I want to be on the podium. I'm not going there to take 10th place. I'm not going there for the free trip. I'm not going there for for the USA Singlet, although that is a huge, important thing to me, I'm going there to get on the podium.
Yeah.
Man, you will get on the podium. We believe in you.
So
awesome.
that's my goal there.
Man, I love it. That just sounds, it all sounds like a blast. So we're super excited for you. Like, this is just,
Thank you.
So.
And after you podium Taiwan, we'll get you back on for.
I'd love it.
Yes.
I love. This was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you guys bringing me on.
Oh, seriously, thanks so much for coming in. We love getting to hang out with you. If you don't know, we've spent quite a bit of time with Preston over the past couple of years, and he's an awesome guy. So it's really a treat to get to have you here with us.
Well, thank you.
If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, probably my best way to kind of follow my career is on Instagram. It's at Presto Runs, so it's PRESTO _ and then runs RUNS. I post pretty regularly on there. I also, throw occasional thing on Facebook, but majority is going to be on Instagram, so I'd follow me there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks again.
Yeah.
And don't forget to like and follow for more podcasts like these, and share this with someone who you feel like needs it, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to Running Unbroken. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and reach out if you or someone you know has a story to share.